This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Europe begins a vaccine rollout with frontliners and the elderly. The Central African Republic elections conclude under a dark cloud of violence. And Niger stages historic election despite jihadist attacks. Welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also ahead on the program, South African health workers issue warning as cases spike. And Tunisia's President Said extends a state of emergency by 6 weeks. The first COVID-19 vaccines have been administered across the European Union, marking a major milestone for Europe in its battle against the virus. The massive vaccination campaign comes after EU regulators gave emergency approval to BioNTech Pfizer vaccine earlier this week, paving the way for European governments to start offering the jabs from Sunday. Trent Murray reports from Berlin.
A simple pinprick, and just like that, Europe's fight back against COVID-19 is officially underway. At this nursing home in central Germany, these elderly residents and their carers were among the first citizens to receive the BioNTech Pfizer vaccine following its approval for use by the EU. They join tens of thousands of people across the continent who will be given the jab as all 27 EU member countries kick off their vaccination campaigns. With Europe still reeling from a major resurgence of the virus, the long-awaited arrival of a vaccine offers for many a moment of relief and reflection.
It is with deep pride and a great sense of responsibility that I receive the vaccine today. It is a small but fundamental gesture for all of us. Today, I am here as a citizen, but above all, as a nurse, to represent my peers and all the health professionals who have chosen to believe in science. I have been touched and have seen with my own eyes how difficult it is to fight this virus, having been on the front lines since the beginning of the emergency.
Europe still remains on high alert over a new variant of the coronavirus, which was first reported by UK authorities. Scientists say it's 70% more infectious than the original virus, and more cases of the mutation are popping up across the continent, including in Spain, France, Italy and Sweden. But health authorities remain hopeful the vaccines will still be effective. Well, this is a scene that will likely provide some much needed hope to people, patients being driven in to get their vaccines. Berlin health authorities have converted one of the city's former airports into a vaccination centre. It's one of a number of sites across the German capital which are now gearing up to start administering the jabs. The first Berlin resident to receive the vaccine said it was vital to protect the elderly.
The virus is very dangerous. We hear and read about it, and there are so many people dying in other homes. It is horrible, and that is why it is so good that we can be vaccinated against it. It is a big advantage for all of us who live here.
Vaccine supplies will for some time remain limited to those particularly at risk. But these first doses mark a major milestone for Europe, finally offering a glimpse of a future that's not entirely dominated by a deadly pandemic. Trent Murray, CGTN, Berlin.
The Chinese mainland on Saturday reported 22 new cases, 12 of them locally transmitted. Among the domestic cases, 7 are in the northeastern Liaoning province. There are also 5 in Beijing who are all close contacts of earlier confirmed cases. Authorities in the capital are conducting mass testing in the district where the new cases were found. They expect to test around 800,000 residents over the weekend. The city of Dalian in Liaoning province is also on high alert. Millions of people there have been tested after local infections emerged, and authorities have shut some schools and public spaces. Well, health workers' unions in South Africa have warned that hospitals in the country will be overwhelmed if COVID-19 cases continue to rise. The country has seen a record spike in COVID-19 cases with more than 42,000 infections registered in just 3 days. That brings the total number closer to the 1 million cumulative cases mark. CGTN's Elisa Njamela tells us more.
South Africa is dealing with a new strain or variant of the COVID-19 virus. And according to health officials, it is spreading rapidly and is driving a second wave of infections. On Christmas Day alone, the country recorded 14,796 new cases. Health unions are now anxious. They have expressed concern that if cases continue to rise at this rate, the situation will only get worse.
It is a genuine concern that we've got with the current rise in statistics, especially with this second surge as it has already been declared. And one of our biggest concerns is the shortage of nurses, particularly, because we've already received reports and complaints of nursing 3 nurses being responsible for 9 ICU patients. And that's just the tip of an iceberg.
DINOSA is the Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa. Many other health unions share this worry.
Our worry is that what we experienced during the first wave, we are still going to experience it. At some point, our hospitals, our wards were full to the rafters. We were putting patients on the tents. What is going to happen now during the second wave, of which it is more dangerous and brutal compared to the first wave?
South Africa's healthcare system has for a while now been in urgent need of major reforms. Even the government has on a number of occasions admitted to this.
The public health system in this country has been described as broken. Facilities are overburdened and understaffed. And the COVID-19 pandemic has added more strain.
And with the added weight and the surge, the numbers that are rising right now, the healthcare system is most likely going to collapse. And to make matters even worse, we are now in a festive season where we've got all the trauma cases that are increasing due to alcohol and all these other things.
Before COVID-19, we've been complaining about gross shortage of staff and gross shortage of material resources. There's no different. There's no new hospital that has been built. There's no new material that has been bought, even during this COVID.
In a statement, the Health Ministry has warned that the government will now need to review the current restrictions and consider further measures. Elisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Let's now head to the Central African Republic, where elections have just concluded. While President Faustin Touadera is seen as the favorite contender, the polls have happened under a dark cloud of violence. As CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa tells us, the situation there is attracting regional and international attention.
Despite opposition parties' calls to have the presidential polls postponed, incumbent President Faustin Touadera's wish came to pass. He had insisted that the polls must be held as planned. His is a position supported by the United Nations and other international partners. Some voters have expressed their optimism.
Every citizen must fulfill his or her civic duty when there are elections. And we are here because we feel very satisfied with the results of the Constitutional Court yesterday at around 11 o'clock. And we are also by the United Nations position and that of other partners, such as Economic Community of Central African States, to guarantee and secure these elections.
There have been difficult moments during these elections, and some people even said the polls will not take place. But to us, this is a demonstration of democracy. So for now, we are living through a very important moment for our country, and I had to come to accomplish this duty and to show the nation and the international community that the democratic process is indeed working.
The exercise was largely peaceful where it happened. However, some stations opened late. As vote counting gets underway, President Touadera is seen as a favorite candidate in a field of 17 candidates. The elections could go to a second round if none of the candidates receives over 50% of the votes cast. But while the Central African nation awaits the poll outcome, another situation is slowly unfolding. Militias hostile to the incumbent have stepped up attacks in many parts of the nation. This followed a constitutional court's decision to deny former President Francois Bozize's candidature. While Russia and Rwanda have sent in troops to counter the militias, locals are on edge. There are fears of Central African Republic sliding back into yet another civil war, and the government is laying the blame on Bozize, which he denies. Wilkis Anyabwa, CGTN.
Meanwhile, Niger is deciding the country's next president. Polls opened early on Sunday in an election expected to see the country's first democratic transfer of power. Niger has experienced 4 coups since gaining independence from France in 1960. Incumbent President Mahamadou Issoufou is stepping down after 2 5-year terms.
There are 30 candidates contesting for Niger's presidency. They include former Interior Minister Mohamed Bazoum, a former President Mahamed Ousmane, and a once transitional leader Salou Djibo. Bazoum is widely expected to succeed President Mahamadou Issoufou. He has vowed to wipe out corruption and continue with Issoufo's policies.
This day had been scheduled for over a year and a half and has been followed through. It's an incredible feat. I give thanks to God to have allowed it to be so. I am very proud of the work done by the National Independent Electoral Commission.
Issoufo's decision to step down has been hailed as a step towards democracy in West Africa. This year, presidents in Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana used constitutional changes to extend the tenures to 3 terms.
It is a special day for us. It is also, and most of all, a special day for Niger, which will experience for the first time in its history a democratic changeover. And I hope that this change will be the first step towards other changes in order to solidify our democratic process. I hope this first changeover will enable to solidify its reputation as a democratic country in Africa and in the world.
More than 7 million voters are expected to cast their vote. A smooth handover would signal a new dawn in a country blighted by widespread poverty and security challenges.
First of all, I'm a teacher, and I vote for change in the education system so that having a quality education becomes a reality. On the security front, we all know we are threatened from everywhere, and we want for peace to return to Niger.
Analysts hope the winner will gain an outright majority vote to avoid a second round. Chamwono, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program. Tunisian President Said extends a state of emergency by 6 weeks. And a South African museum showcases artwork created during the lockdown.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo, Juba, Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Tunisia's president has extended the country's state of emergency by another 6 months. The measure, which has been in place since 2015, gives the country's security forces extra powers to tackle any threats. Tunisia has witnessed cases of political and social instability in recent weeks, including a terror attack that shocked many. Adnan Chauchi has that story.
On December 20th, the decapitated body of a young man from a village in the governorate of Gasreen was found by his family in Jebel al-Salloum. The 32-year-old shepherd was beheaded by members of the Tunisian branch of the terrorist group Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, known as Uqba ibn Nafa. 3 security officers also died in a separate road accident while accompanying the interior minister to Kasserine. President Qais Said paid tribute to the victims.
We will never forget them. We will never forget the heroes of Tunisia. They will remain in the memory of the Tunisian people as martyrs who died while doing the sacred duty of protecting their homeland, state pride and territorial integrity.
The head of state says the National Security Council will counter any attempt to jeopardize Tunisia's national security. The Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces expressed his confidence in the ability of the country's military and security units to preserve state institutions.
Tunisia is living in one of the most serious periods. Danger is lacking inside and outside. The security forces and the army are ready to face any terrorist danger and destabilization attempts.
Parliament's Security and Defense Commission has approved the new security measures and the extension of the state of emergency. Experts are worried that the unrest in Libya poses a direct threat to Tunisia's security.
The president signed the order to extend the state of emergency because the National Security Council estimates the situation is critical, especially with the instability, tension and armed conflicts in Libya. The state of emergency is necessary. There's an alternative to it. It gives the government legal protection to maintain order and counter the permanent terror threat.
Qais Said cautioned those he said were seeking to cripple the state from within by undermining the proper functioning of its institutions. Analysts assert that the security situation in Tunisia is fragile despite gains. The state of emergency was first declared in November 2015 after a terrorist attack on a presidential guard bus. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
To South Africa now, where an extraordinary art exhibition comprising of artwork created during this year's unprecedented lockdown is underway. CGTN's Travers Andrews has more on this report.
Home is where the art is an exhibition for and by the people of Cape Town, and is an open submission of works created by children, emerging and established artists in different artistic mediums. The collection encompasses nearly 2,000 artworks and is on display at the Zeitz Museum of Contemporary Art Africa, and it's meant to use art as a way of celebrating the reopening of the museum after 7 months of closure due to the lockdown.
Unlike any other exhibition we've done, this was an open call to the public of Cape Town. It meant talking to public throughout Cape Town, going out into communities and actually speaking to them one-on-one about their work. This was a very big and timely process.
The abundance of talent and enthusiasm shown by the collaborators is clear to see, and so is the inclusivity of the exhibition. Paintings by established artists can be seen besides drawings done by children. The different mediums used include paintings, photography, sculptures, and even a mural.
Through gathering artworks from the various communities throughout Cape Town, a couple of important themes started to lift out of the artworks on display. One of those is garden, inside and outside, relations, how we relate to one another, as well as time. Time is something we've been consistently marking throughout lockdown. So these are the broad themes that we were looking at.
The exhibition also showcases works from established artists such as Liddell Moe, whose submission speaks to various issues including monumentality.
Our work centres around the figure, and I was looking at this notion of dropping to your knees as an act of submission and then staying there as this kind of notion of waiting, this temporary in-between state of waiting for something, but also acknowledging much bigger powers.
With the festive season underway, the curators hope that many people will come to see the collection, which runs until the second week of January 2021. Unlike many other exhibitions, Home is where the art will not run as a hybrid event, because the museum wants enthusiasts to experience the true expression of the artist, and that can only be done by seeing the collection firsthand. That Andrew, CGTN, Cape Town.
Senegal is known for its rich and vast culture that dates back centuries. It is also famous for its cuisine and has been pushing to popularize its national dish, the tire-bouillon, beyond borders. Last September, it submitted a file to have the home-style mill listed under the UNESCO World Intangible Cultural Heritage. According to the authorities, the objective is to promote cultural diversity and the Senegalese culinary heritage.
In Senegal, a popular rice dish known as the tubu diuna is said to highlight the local culture and identity of its people. It is prepared with fish, rice, carrots, cassava, onions, chili, and many other ingredients. The meal requires around 2 hours of both preparation and cooking time. It is considered a staple food and one of the country's greatest recipes. And now, Senegal wants to put it on a map.
Nous avons un patrimoine culinaire très riche.
We have a very rich and varied culinary heritage, but unfortunately we don't know it. By submitting a file for the inscription of the Thibu Dunyon UNESCO's World Intangible Cultural Heritage List, we are promoting all the local gastronomy. Gastronomy is very important for the intangible heritage. I believe that if Thibu Dune is inscribed on UNESCO's World Heritage List, it will enhance and promote Senegalese gastronomy. This will also allow us to reopen the Senegal Gastronomy Fair, which will be held annually to show the nutritional value of our gastronomy.
The idea has been well received across the country.
We will be very happy if one day our national dish is listed on the UNESCO list of World Heritage. From generation to generation, the tiabu dien is the first dish that mothers teach their daughters to prepare. I assure you that there is no Senegalese woman who does not know how to cook the tiabu dien, because it is the favorite dish of all Senegalese people.
I even think that this dish is known beyond the borders of our country. For example, if you ask foreigners what is the best dish in Senegal, they will tell you tiabu dien. This is why we welcome the idea of including it in the UNESCO World Heritage List. This will give even more value to our dish, the tiabu dien. And we hope that people will come from various countries to taste our famous dish.
Senegal already boasts 7 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. If selected, the Tiubu Diuno will be the very first Senegalese intangible asset to be listed as a UNESCO World Heritage. Chamwono, CGTN.
Let's now take a look at your sports news. Here's what's ahead. We take a look at 2020 and how motorsports was impacted by the pandemic.
Taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Over the last 14 hours of rain.
Now, through the coronavirus pandemic, the African continent too felt the pinch of major tournament cancellations in 2020. With the eyes of the world set to turn this way for a number of events, it was a bitter pill to swallow for sports supporters, players and organizers as their plans collapsed. CGTN's Will Kistanyabwa has more.
With the start of a new year 2020, expectations were high in sports, especially motorsports, with the return of the Safari Rally being one of the highlights in the 2020 Africa sporting calendar.
People want to put money in the rally. We are going to listen to them because everything has changed with the coming of WRC and coming with the television numbers.
That was in early February. Fast forward to May and the July event was officially called, delaying the much-anticipated return to next year. Despite the scrapping of the Safari Rally, the World Rally Championship returned in September with a revised schedule that included only 7 races. In the world of MotoGP, the organizers cut the races to just 13, starting their season in